Hello, welcome back to Beauty Bee, where today I'm going to be duping the vibes of the new Viseart Cashmerie Étendu palette. This is a beautiful 12-pan palette. It is part of their Étendu series, which is their extensions. So this is an extension of their 6-pan Cashmere Theory palette. This palette is calling to me on several different levels. The minute I saw it, well, my first thought was that I wanted to own it, but that's not going to happen. My second was that I should really try to dupe this out in my own collection. There are definitely elements of this palette that are calling to me that I can't personally replicate. I love this Art Nouveau inspired floral packaging. I think that is beautiful. I like Viseart as a brand, and obviously the palette that I'm putting together is not going to be solely Viseart shadows. Additionally, I just think it's really cute that not only is the exterior packaging this Art Nouveau theme, but the individual shade names are very 1920s inspired, very jazz age. I think that's very cool. I'm very into this retro vibe. And once you actually move a little bit past that and look at the shades themselves, I do think they are very pretty, but likely very dupeable within a lot of people's collections. There is essentially a 6-pan rosy mauve palette, and then a 6-pan more of a golden brown palette. Essentially, it looks like what I would think the Naked 1 Basics and Naked 3 Basics probably should look like, collapsed into one palette. And I think it's very pretty, but largely dupeable. So, spoiler, I have already done this. This is actually my first look that I've done using the completed palettes. Before we get into the main portion of the video, I would just like to remind you to consider liking and subscribing if you like this kind of content. And with that, let's build this palette. Okay, so welcome to my giant spread of eyeshadows. These are pretty much all of the shadows that I either have depotted in these magnetic palettes or are just able to be popped out of their original packaging. I mean, I think there's one additional palette, but looking at it, it didn't have anything that seemed likely to work in this context. So let's just get right to it. I have a picture of the Viseart palette pulled up, and I think we're going to start with what almost looks like this light pinky gold shimmer. Now, I don't think that I actually have anything quite that light that is a gold, but I do have this really light rose gold shade, and I do have this white that has a little bit of a golden shift to it. And I think just looking at it that this is probably going to be the better match. This is Pinup from Tarte, so we're going to start with that one. Additionally, we can always change things around. I also need quite a deep gray is what it looks like to me. Though, you know what, let's just put a black in there and call it good, because I mean, a super dark gray and black, this is not even the best black ever. They're gonna look practically identical. So to finish out this row, I want sort of a mid-tone gold. I think the one on the, let's change this. Let's rotate this so that you're seeing the palette as it's intended to be instead of me. I know what I'm supposed to be making. Okay. Flipped that around. Hopefully it is still in frame. We'll just scoot that, then I'll be pretty certain it's there. So, after after that little aside, now let's get back to the palette. I feel like maybe we should pull the low-hanging fruit first, the ones where it seems pretty obvious what my closest shade would be. So, for example, this camel shade seems to pretty clearly be my closest match to the camel shade in the palette. There's a matte cream. I actually think most of my matte creams are in palettes. This one I think is too white. I think most of my matte creams are actually in palette form, in like solid palette doesn't come apart form. This is too white, so I think that this is probably my best bet. This is a Pacifica palette that I depotted, and clearly, as you can see, I did a fabulous job of not making a total mess of things. Is something that I have never said about my depotting abilities ever. I actually intended to film that, and well, first of all, the footage just didn't record. I don't think I pressed record on it. Second, I don't think this was a depotting journey so much as like a snuff film of my eyeshadows. So I'm kind of glad that didn't work out. Okay. Back to the topic at hand. What were the other sort of obvious shades that I thought I saw? Oh, this one. This is from my e.l.f. 70s Feels palette. And it is this cool-toned taupey shade, which I think looks really close to that upper left-hand shade in the palette. So let's go with that. And this was a victim of that same depotting spree. Now, I'm not going about this in any kind of reasonable order, as I'm sure you can tell. But let's see if I can't find something pretty similar to that cool-toned I am really not going about this in a very methodical way, am I? I think the next shade that I want to dupe out is that cooler transition shade that's in the middle, the one that goes right here. So I'm seeing some possibilities. I think that, well, this one and then its buddy, this shade, which are practically identical, I think are a little bit too purple. They're a little bit more cool toned than what I'm really looking for. I think that this one is a potential candidate, though it's probably a little bit less reddish than what I really want. I actually thought that that palette might have something similar, but it really doesn't look like it does. This could be a possibility. And I don't know if I've mentioned this yet in this video. Oh, why did that just, the magnet just came off. Well, the little magnetic sticker just came off. Come on, what are you doing? That's not what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to stay on. This video is such a mess. Naughty eyeshadow. And let's see. That is probably the closest shade that I have, but I'm also angry at that shade. So we're going to open it to further competition. I don't think this one is actually super, super close, but I do like it. So let's kind of see how that might fit in with everything else. That is clearly more purple than the one in the palette, but I'm not sure I care. So, are there any other potential candidates? Really, that one seems like a possibility too. Let's just kind of keep all 4 of them out and see how the rest of the palette comes together, and then we can always reassess, pick favorites, etc. Cool? Excellent. I'm just assuming that you all agree with me because I agree with me and I'm the only one here right now. So, next up, this shade, because I refuse to go in any kind of logical order in this video. I think this has sort of the right amount of red in it. The other potential candidate I see is this shade, which is from Viseart. And I think this one actually might have a little too much red in it. So let's stick with this one for right now. We can always rearrange, always reconsider. Honestly, I can rearrange and reconsider after this palette is done because it's not like I'm gluing things down. You know, it just doesn't make quite as satisfying of a video if I don't have a semi-final product at the end. Okay, this is looking really not super appealing so far, I feel, but hopefully that will change. Fingers crossed. Okay, next up, I would like to figure out this shade. To me, this looks to be a very light pink with some sheen to it. So, let's see. Do we have a nice cool toned shade with some sheen? I kind of thought when I was getting things together that this would be the right shade, but I think this is actually deeper than the shades that are actually on the palette. Not that that necessarily means that it won't end up in the final product, but we're going to try to at least keep things pretty close, and then I can always tweak later. So maybe this is actually the closest shade that I have. Come out. Thank you. This is a very light shimmery pink from, well, I just took it out of my Viseart palette, so I hope it's from Viseart. It is. And I think that is actually still a little bit more pink than what is actually in the palette, but I like it, so we're just gonna roll with it. I feel like the next 2 shades that I should probably figure out are these 2, because I want to do these at around the same time, because they really, at least in the pictures that I have seen, do not look all that different in the actual palette, and I want to be able to compare them side by side and really figure out how to put in these 2 gold shades in a way that I don't feel like I'm just wasting space in my palette with 2 nearly identical shades. I don't think that the Viseart ones are nearly identical. I just think that in my collection, in the assortment of eyeshadows that I have before me, the colors that would be the closest to these shades are pretty close. So let's pull the candidates. That seems like a good first step. We have this brown. I think this is a little bit darker than either of the shades, but you know what? We're going for some difference here. I have this bronze. I don't particularly like this shade. I don't think it performs very well, but I do have it, and I think it is actually probably the closest thing I have to the gold that's on the right side of the palette, the one right here. That's a possibility. I don't know why I don't have any gold or bronze in this palette, but I don't, so that makes it easy. This is too yellow. Nothing here. This is, I guess, a possibility. And then this is actually a little bit deeper, but again, we're gonna pull it and consider. So, let's see. I will swatch everything out at the end, but let's just take a look at things for right now. That one's still under consideration. If I put this one in the palette, it would be in place of this shade. Maybe. How about that one instead? Let's swatch these. This one's not a very good shade, but maybe it would be nice to have a topper kind of shade in the palette. And then here is this more bronzy one. You know, that's more orange than I really want this palette to be. So that can go back. This one. That's a little bit less orange, but they're really pretty similar shades. I think I'm gonna go with this shade for right now. This shade from Profusion. And I can build this up, I can wet it. I'm pretty sure that I can make it work. I'm not feeling very decisive this morning. I think that overall that's probably just a little bit too dark to hit the right vibe. So the Profusion shade it is, and then I just want to put the shade in. I think this is pretty. Is it a little deeper than was probably intended? Yeah. Did I just kick this out for the same crime? Also, yes. Can I fit them both in? Is that an option? I mean, it's an option, of course, but is it feasible? Doesn't appear to be right now. So I'll put this one back, and we can always play around with things at the end. Okay. What am I doing in this video? I don't know. So, what is this shade? What do I have left to figure out on this side? I need a cool, I need like a cool toned shimmery brown. Do I have that? Possibly. Not there. Do you think this is actually similar? Because I think that the base color of this at least looks pretty close. What if I just put it in and then I can just use it? Honestly, it might actually be a duochrome shade. This is Glass Bull from ColourPop, by the way. The one in the palette might be a duochrome. I really don't know. I guess it is time now to figure out this shade, isn't it? Well, this is a no. That doesn't fit the vibe. The more it got built out. This is honestly not a bad possibility, I think. That one is... Those two are different enough that... I don't know. I mean, they both fit. Why am I worrying so much about this? They both fit. Who cares? And then I need a lighter beigey cool tone brown. Something to put right there. How about this? This is a little bit more pink, but it is very pretty. And, ooh, this one is a little bit more purple, I think. But again, it's pretty. And I like purple. Okay, wait, those are actually a lot more similar than I thought they would be when I look at them side by side. Huh. I think, let's see, what colors kind of come through in these when you swatch them out? This one definitely has some pink to it, a lot more pink to it when you swatch it out. This is, although maybe I just swatched that over something else. Let's see. Yeah, that is a rather pink shade. I don't think I want that. So let's stick this in. And I think that I have my palette. So I will swatch things out and meet back with you in just a second after I've hopefully put some things away too. Okay, so here we have everything swatched out, and I feel like this ended up being a very pink toned palette for me. There's definitely a little bit of depth here, which I appreciate. Do you like my very black stained finger? There's some shine to it. I like that. I feel like there are some similar shades, and I'm not quite sure if that's because there are some similar shades in the Viseart palette, or if I just have a tendency to buy the same shades over and over again. I think both are definite possibilities. Overall, though, I think this is pretty. I think this is a really lovely neutral palette. And I think that this has done its real job, which was just to convince me that I don't need the Viseart one. And mission accomplished. I do look forward to playing around with this, though. I will probably have a 2 looks, 1 palette using my version up sometime later this week. So if you are interested in that, I hope you will subscribe and check back, maybe Wednesday or Friday to see what I came up with. And I think that brings us to the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I really hope that I will see you in my next video. Goodbye!